Janine Malone,
And I'm Kristen Ciccolini.
and you're listening to It's Just a Phase. Each week, we'll bring you inspiring and informative conversations about honoring the different cycles of life, covering topics of health and wellness, moon phases, astrology, witchcraft, feminism, and more, so you can superpower your well-being and live your best life.
You sound so excited.
I am buoying my spirits, given that it is election week. I'm just trying to show up the way I would like to feel.
Yeah. I just realized I forgot to shut my window and my neighbor's singing opera outside my window. Can you hear her? She sounds very excited as well.
Oh my gosh, no, I cannot, but
She kind of sounds like she's like practicing her notes. She's not really like singing anything, but she sounds like one of those Halloween ghosts at CVS.
Oh my
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
I'll have to send you because I recorded it the other day because she was so annoying.
You're like, in case I ever need proof.
Well, no, I sent it to my friend, but I wasn't just recording it for fun. But you have to hear it. I'll send it to you after this. It's really funny. It
Please.
sounds exactly like that. But yeah, I mean, maybe she's just like screaming in a nice way.
I mean, if
Maybe
we could
that's how
all
she
just like
feels.
go outside and scream, I think we would.
Yeah.
Should.
Well, we don't want to alarm anyone, so maybe opera
Right.
singing is the best way.
Yeah, exactly. That's to cope. Opera singing to cope.
But we do need some self-care at this time, some energetic hygiene around this election.
Yes.
Are you doing
Yes, yes.
anything to do that? To cleanse?
I'm just trying to limit how many times I like check in on social media or the news a day, like I think that we're going to be waiting for a little while before there's a definitive winner, and I just don't want to be, I don't know. I just don't want to be in the space of like holding my breath for the next however long it takes.
Totally.
But that'll be a true lesson in like my ability to hold that boundary,
Yeah, the true test.
It sounds a lot easier than I think it's going to be in practice.
Yeah, I'm gonna really have to put some boundaries around that because
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I'm on my phone. I mean, like all day checking things. So,
Yeah.
but I think it's important, especially to remember that social media is intended to be polarizing and divisive. That's what keeps you on the apps and commenting and arguing and
Yep.
and reading polarizing headlines and all that. That's what gets the click. So if we want to maintain some semblance of agency in all this, I think, putting some boundaries around our social media could be some good energetic hygiene for the election this godforsaken week.
Yes. I mean, I do feel a little bit of a relief that like we're here,
Yes.
like we've reached, at least let's not say the finish line. We've reached the last mile, and I don't know. I'm just trying to maintain hope and optimism and, like,
Mhm.
and then just a sense of relief that this whole cycle, I don't know, will hopefully be fucking over. I don't know. Hard to know what to say, to be honest.
Fingers crossed. Yes. And I mean, so we're recording this like a week or so ahead of time. So if anything crazy happens before this
we
comes
don't
out,
know.
just know that, we're in the dark right now.
Yeah, exactly. Literally and figuratively. But let's go into in more exciting, maybe not more exciting, more useful, optimistic, whatever word we want to use. What's our cosmic update for the week, Kristen?
I'd go with useful.
Yeah.
Well, so we're coming off the Halloween full moon and it's waning through the week. So there's a lot of energy from that moon that you might still feel throughout the week. So Monday, I mean, it only happened 3 days ago now,
Right.
by the time you're listening to this, or when this comes out, I should say. So you might still have all that full moon energy, which can definitely fuck with your sleep. I don't know if it ever messes with yours, but I know
Yeah,
mine,
definitely.
yeah, I have a hard time sleeping. I have weird dreams once I finally do fall asleep. Um, but yeah, so if you feel that, getting some rest might be nice. And then the moon will also be in Cancer from Wednesday to Friday this week. And I sure hope that doesn't mean we're going to be crying for days on end about the election, but
I mean, speaking as the Cancer of the group, I know that regardless of the outcome, I will be crying.
happy tears of joy, tears of
Yeah,
sadness. Who knows?
exactly.
It's coming. But
Yes.
it's a water moon in a water sign, in a water zodiac season, in a water actual season. Dear Lord, let's try not to drown. So to do that, maybe think about what keeps you above water, what floats your boat.
Love that.
Yeah, so thinking positively sounds a little bit cliche, but I'd like to inform you that gratitude is actually one of the strongest emotions that can influence our physiology. Did you know that?
Oh, I did not know that.
Yes,
Is
there
that why
are.
like people just are obsessed with telling me to start a gratitude practice?
Maybe.
Not just me, but I just feel like that's very people love to give that advice.
Yeah. Well, we think about I feel like I probably said this before, but we think about like all of the toxic things, like people talk about eliminating toxins and all that, but like thoughts can be toxic too. So
Mm.
it can be good to sort of like cleanse the brain and with some gratitude, I guess.
Mhm.
But there are studies on it. So different emotions can produce different patterns in the heart's electromagnetic field, which is cool. And
Yeah.
the one that comes to mind when I think about this stuff is this chart that I saw in my functional nutrition training. It showed the result of a husband and wife. So they were practicing consciously feeling appreciation for each other, which probably sounds awkward to do like in real practice, but for a study, just sitting there and like consciously appreciating each other. And it showed that their hearts were basically in rhythm, beating in rhythm with one another.
Oh,
They're just like, they're vibing with each other.
that is some moon and Cancer shit.
Yeah. I knew you'd love that.
I love it so much. Dean, if you're listening, we're going to be practicing conscious appreciation
Yeah.
this weekend while I throw the TV out the window.
Well, as the resident water sign, do you have any other ways that we can manage through this week?
I mean, just like feel your fucking feelings, y'all. Like, it's just, there is, I don't want to say there's no way, because, like, whatever, we all cope in different ways, but like, I just think it's going to be a very intense and emotional and draining and confusing week.
Hmm.
No matter what, and like, I think that in some ways, there's like comfort in just like accepting that like walking into it, like, no, it's kind of
Yeah.
like when you go into a situation, maybe you have to have a conversation with someone, or like you're going to an event and you're going to be running into people, or it's like a certain whatever, and you like prepare for like, this isn't going to feel like a normal week. Like, try to create some spaciousness to be able to like be where you are, emotionally, rather than like fighting the feelings, I would say, because I just can't imagine that there's, I mean, God, there just is no normal at all right now, but I just can't imagine that there's any way to get through and just be like, oh, right. Oh, right. The election was this week. Like, it's going to be pretty all consuming. So acceptance, I think, could be helpful. Maybe that's not the most uplifting, but
You know
lean
what?
with it, rock with it,
Yeah, your favorite phrase.
True.
What else is happening this week?
Well, on it's funny to even call it election day because I know millions and millions of people have already voted, but Mercury stations direct on the 3rd, so which is technically election day. So that's kind of interesting. But the post retrograde shadow period is still happening. So this is kind of like the waning phase of Mercury's retrograde cycle. So all of the things that you think about when you think about a normal waning phase: reflection, recalibration, analysis, you know, rest, restoration, is all applied. So again, like thinking about, we're in a waning moon week and we're in that Mercury retrograde shadow. So like spaciousness. I really love that we started with the idea of just like getting sleep, you know, like
Mhm.
just anywhere that you can kind of create some of that like space and rest is going to be so supportive and help you survive, let's say. I'm being a Debbie Downer, but I'm
It's
just
just a phase for a mood boost.
right. Yeah, yeah, exactly. But like truly, I mean, I don't want like, I'm certainly not walking into this week being like, you know what? Maybe this is the week that I like try to do all these new things or set these new intentions or make these new habits. Like I'm just
Mm-mm.
going to be as kind and gentle to myself as humanly possible, and kind and gentle to the people in my life,
Yeah,
because we're all going to be going through it.
it is. It's not a week for action, except for voting. But outside of that,
Yeah, that's that's it. I've been saving the new season of Great British Baking or whatever.
Bake Off.
Bake Off. I always forget what it's called for some reason.
Wait, I think it's Bake Off in England and Baking Show.
Yeah, what is it here?
Baking Great British Baking Show?
Oh, sure.
I don't know.
Either way, I've been saving those new EPs, just really knowing that I was going to need them. And I think this is the week. I'm just going to shut out the world, wear the softest sweatpants I can find.
Mm, good idea.
Yeah, like just be nice to yourself, you know? That's my advice. And so I'm actually really excited for today's episode.
Yeah. So speaking of self-care, we are going to be talking about the wheel of the year today and how we can use it for seasonal self-care, especially if we want a little more guidance than what we've talked about with just spring, summer, fall, and winter, or the moon phases. I mean, there we can use those and we can, use them as kind of puzzle pieces. But the beauty of cycles is that they are everywhere and there's lots of different things we can choose from. And you can choose whatever feels most aligned to your needs at this time or at any time. So, Janine, what is the wheel of the year exactly?
Essentially, we're going to be talking through the 8 Sabbats, which are essentially holy days. So there's 4 solar festivals and 4 seasonal festivals. This is essentially like the solar cycle. So we've obviously talked a lot this season and last season about the lunar cycle, and we relate a lot of things back to that. But the solar cycle has its own fun too, right? So these mark the passing of the seasons. They honor the never ending cycle of nature's fertility, the celebration of the holidays that really connect us more deeply to the earth, to the natural world, which I find to feel, really supportive and really helps me stay present um, in that experience. Reminds me to go outside. That's always nice. So essentially what that includes is the spring and the fall equinoxes, the summer and the winter solstices, and the halfway points in between those seasons. So that forms the wheel of the year. And it really represents dreaming, planting, nourishing, tending, harvesting, and resting. So these are all going to be themes that you guys are familiar with if you've been listening for a little while. And this is just kind of a new way to look at it, like Kristen was saying. So there's wisdom in each one of these milestones that mark different points as we move through the cycle of natural life. And it can be kind of fun to, infuse a little bit of ritual or some intentional self-care at these different mile markers, essentially.
So rather than start at the beginning of the year, like January, February, we wanted to start here with Samhain, which is the witch's new year. So we talked about this a little bit last week. So it's on Halloween and it just passed by the time this episode comes out. But that doesn't mean you can't still celebrate or practice self-care in a way that honors this Sabbath. So you can celebrate and honor the dead. That's the intent of this holiday. You know, the veil between the worlds is the thinnest, as we said, as we talked about last time. It's when you honor the light and dark, and the duality. And this is also a time of year for reaffirmation in a lot of ways, the cycle of life, death, rebirth. So those themes of reflection, lineage, and release are really potent at this time. So, the way we're going to do this, we're going to go through each of the holidays and talk about what what each of them represent, and the themes of that time, and then the self-care that you can practice at that time to sort of embody each holiday. So for Samhain, one thing you can do is to honor your ancestors. So again, this is that time where our connection to the other world is really strong. So, one thing you can do is just spend time with your living family and learn about your history in that way, or you can honor your ancestors. I actually heard about this idea recently and I thought it was really cool, but having a death dinner, have you ever heard of that?
No.
Yeah, it's just you can do this with friends or you can do it alone, and you basically, have a dinner and set placements for your ancestors and put a little bit on their plates and as an offering, and just it's a quiet dinner. You don't really talk or anything, or I don't know, maybe you can. I only just learned about this, but I thought it
I've
was pretty
actually
cool.
heard of like, yeah, like I haven't heard of it as the type, like the name death dinner, but I have heard of like doing like a silent dinner as
Mhm.
like yeah, like holding space and for
Yeah,
the
and
past generations and things, which I think is really special.
yeah, exactly. It's in reverence for them.
Yes.
It is special. And if you want to, you could also write a letter to them or make an altar to them. I've seen some really cool altars. I mean, especially, I feel like Italians do this without even, you know,
Oh, 100%.
purposely having it be like anything related to witchcraft or anything like that. It's just like, they have that table with all the pictures of everyone in their family that's died, and like all these little trinkets, and so anything that reminds you of them or feels like honors them, that could be a nice thing to put there.
Yeah, I love that. Um, in like Celtic tradition, candles were placed in the windows to illuminate like the spirits traveling home, which I think is kind of a nice idea. And even just something that could be nice to like carry on through the darker months. Obviously, you start to see candles. I mean, obviously the little like plastic ones or whatever, but decorating people's homes. And I just like I guess I had never really thought about that being kind of like a traditional offering. So that could be something that I just thought was kind of nice too, like something simple that you could leave up between Samhain and the winter solstice. And it's also just a good time to reflect on your accomplishments of the year, to really look at like again like the passage of time and how you started the year, what you've let go, what you've allowed in, how you've transformed, um, especially like as it concerns kind of like your own personal healing or development, um, and like spiritual practices. I think that I always sort of like to come back to that this time of year of yeah, how I've progressed in my own, not necessarily wellness, but just like connection to self, if you
Mm.
will. I don't really look at like my work accomplishments around Samhain personally. I like to. I just feel like it feels more spiritual than that personally. But I think it's a good time, as always, in the fall to be doing some reflecting. And I mean, this is also we just can't go past. This is the time to like let your freak flag fly a little bit. You know, have a little
Totally.
have a
Yeah.
little fun, be a little spooky, get a little like I don't know, like what better time than to really embrace like ritual or altar practices or yeah, like offerings to your ancestors. Like it's just a great time of year to do that, obviously, because of this Samhain holiday, but also just like feels right.
Yeah, I love it.
Me too.
So the next one after Samhain is winter solstice or Yule. So this is the longest, darkest night of the year, and it marks the time when the sun's light starts to increase. So the waxing part of the year begins. Um, Very small because the
Yep.
light is only starting to come back, but traditionally it's a day of really of great relief and joy. And traditionally, Yule logs were gathered as gifts to light the home. So, because it's the darkest night of the year. And people also hung wreaths made of or made with fruit and twigs and leaves and all that to encourage a good harvest for the next year.
Mhm.
And I was looking this up. This is actually the origin of wreaths that you see at Christmas. And it was intended for pagan rituals, but Christianity took it over with a lot of these holidays. And it doesn't mean a whole lot now. We just kind of like hang it up as a decoration for Christmas, but you can make it mean something, which I think is a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I think that like through actually looking like researching for this episode, I feel like there are so many traditions that I was like, "Oh, right. That's where that comes from." So, I think that's awesome. And you know, for self-care, I think for traditionally on winter solstice or on Yule, like a really traditional ritual is to rise before dawn and go out to like greet the sun. Um I think that there's something really potent about that. It's kind of a nice time of year, even if you're not an early riser, which I totally understand, or you don't have your like Canada Goose jacket or whatever to like get out there in the freezing cold. It's just a nice time of year to remind yourself that like we too can begin again, like the sun still rises. All of those like affirmations of like hope and continuation and building momentum, I think can be really powerful at this time of year to like start to like ignite that inner fire. Um, I also think I was researching, like I said, and I came across this article that was saying like, or it was sorry, it was in a book. I'll find the title and put it in the show notes. It's like the Celtic Women's Wheel of the Year or something. But it said, show your faith in the waxing year by making tentative plans for summer, which I actually really liked.
Oh,
Like,
I like that.
yeah, like you have this relief of like the sun coming back and you're like showing your commitment and belief in the sun that it will return, so you start like thinking about summer, which I think is really sweet.
Yeah,
So
I like that
anyway,
a
you can
lot.
do that. Yeah, I like looking at kind of like the 6 months forward and then like in reflection. So, and I mean nothing bad about in a winter in New England thinking about summer and
Yeah.
reminding yourself why you live here in the first place.
Yeah, seriously. That is definitely something I'll be doing.
Yeah.
I hate being cold. Yeah, I've lived here my whole life, so
Here you are.
yeah. You could also do some arts and crafts, that's a good way to stay present and, start to do some mindfulness practices. But arts and crafts can be fun. So, like we were just talking about with the wreaths, you can make your own with flowers and fruit or other items that represent what you want to call in for the following year. And you could also do some shadow work. We're very familiar with that, Janine, aren't we?
Oh, we sure are.
Yeah. Well, at this time of year when the night is dark, 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 it might be a good time to do some inner work and explore that shadow side, the parts of you that you've kept hidden or were taught to stow away to be more acceptable to others. That's what we mean when we talk about shadow. And I highly recommend reading the book. It's a quick read, Gold Mining the Shadows by Pixie Lighthorse. That book, it's really helpful, I think, to help you tease out what some of that shadow might be, especially if you're not sure. But
Mm.
also, it points out things that maybe you've been hiding that you never realized you were hiding. So I think it's good to keep a journal handy to mentally work through that if you're going to read it. So
I
that's a
love
good one.
that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I definitely mirror your sentiment on like if you're doing reading anything about shadow work, like keeping a journal or a highlighter or a pen close by is like paramount.
Yes.
There's a lot to uncover that you'll want to take notes on, I think. Um, yeah, and you can also like kind of anytime I feel like between Samhain and the winter solstice, you can really be working with the death card.
Hmm.
Remember, it doesn't have to be bad. It's very rarely bad. We have an interesting relationship with death here in American culture, but um the death card is about change and transformation, endings and beginnings, kind of like coexisting. And so, just like in the Yule time or in this kind of like dark new moon period, it can be interesting to just explore and make peace with and think about just like the idea of letting things go and change and grief and um, revival in a lot of ways. So yeah, like what bridge do you need to cross to the past or current version of you to bring to the next iteration? Kind of like where are you in that cycle? Again, I feel like with the winter solstice coming very close to the end of the year, we kind of do this naturally, right? Like, I think that that's another thing that's kind of fascinating if you're not familiar with these holidays necessarily, like thinking about how they, while you may not know their like traditional like pagan names necessarily or the history of them, there is kind of some of that, this work like built into even just like modern marketing messages. It's like kind of fascinating.
Yeah, it is really interesting.
um, yeah, so then we make our way to Imbolc, February 1st. So this is the halfway point between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. Um, this literally translates to in the belly. So it's celebrating the oncoming spring, new life, new beginnings, the growing light. Imbolc has also been referred to as a festival of women's mysteries, which I came
Oh, I
across.
didn't know that.
Yeah, and I was like, well, that fucking rules. Like definitely my new favorite Wheel of the Year holiday just for that alone. But it's really like a waxing time, a nurturing time, a time of, um, you know, growth. And again, like I think there's something really nice about like the hopefulness of both Yule and Imbolc that is really helpful to channel in some of your self care.
Yeah, I agree. And so for that self-care, I mean, journaling is always a great thing to do, but I think especially at this time, thinking about what it is that you want to nurture. So as this holiday is all about that nurturing time, that's new life, new beginnings, and all that. Um, just thinking about the thing, like kind of just what we talk about in the follicular phase and the waxing moon phase. Like, what intentions are you setting out on, and how do you want to bring them about? Same thing. Other ways
Yeah.
that you can embody this, you can become a plant person and learn how to, oops,
Yes.
my earbud fell out. Anyway, you can become a plant person and learn how to tend to your plant's needs. So, especially if you have a few different kinds, um, good luck because you can teach me how to do it. But you'll also find that every plant is different, even different sometimes from what the actual like plant card tells you to do. And it's really just, paying attention to when it needs watering and just this kind of personality. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Like they all have different needs. Like sometimes, like there's what my spider plant gets really dramatic when I don't water it. Like it'll just like sag, and I'm like,
Oh my God, I
really?
love a dramatic plant. Like, oh God, I'm so thirsty.
Yeah. It's good because I won't notice otherwise. But that's why I'm not a
Yeah,
plant person.
it's just learned. It's like, this is the only way I'll get what I need.
Yeah. Well, if you're not a plant person, you can also, if you want to, tap into your nurturing side, hang out with a baby.
Hang out
Hang
with a
out with,
baby.
yeah, hang out with a cuddly, fun little baby, not a crying one. Those aren't fun.
No.
But, a cute little baby that makes you, you're celebrating a growing life. So,
Yes. I
if
love
you
that.
if you have access to a baby.
Do it. Yeah, find a baby, hang out with it.
Yeah.
You can also do candle magic for Imbolc. There's a lot of like, kind of fire imagery in the traditional sense with this holiday. So anything, even just like using candles, like lighting candles around your house, like instead of turning on like overhead lights, like just creating kind of that like fiery energy. And again, like there's like a building energy here, whether you're doing like specific candle magic or rituals or just like again inviting that energy in. I also think, and maybe this is just silly, but I think that February is like, not just because of Valentine's Day, but I think it's like a pretty romantic month. Like there is such hope, especially for us New Englanders, where like we tell ourselves that like February is the last month of winter, but it often isn't. But like there is kind of that like um really trying to like shake off winter, you know?
Mm.
Getting back in, I don't know, maybe it's just me personally, but like this is always the time where I'm like, yeah, maybe I should like start like thinking about shaving my legs again. And so like I don't know, I was just really thinking about like beauty rituals around Imbolc. Like I think that there is like a feminine energy to this holiday, and there's like a fiery um just like nurturing yourself in that way of like taking care, like I don't know, there's just, it feels really nice to think about like a thoughtful skincare routine, or like just like making your bed in a really luxurious way, or like
Mm.
some really nice like scents or something. um Feels kind of like feminine and nurturing to yourself in a way that's like very beautiful.
Yeah, I like that. And I also just like
Shave
the
your legs. I don't
the
know.
festival of women's mysteries reveals what's under the hair on your legs.
I mean, talk about truth.
Yeah.
Like, what is under these layers and layers of like cardigans and sweatshirts? Like, what is happening? Does she have a body?
She does.
She
And
does.
well, then we move into spring equinox. So finally, it's like what you were just saying, that positivity that something good is coming.
We got
But
here.
yeah, so spring equinox or Ostara. So that's in March, and it's a celebration in honor of Ostara, so the spring goddess that oversees the budding earth as it grows. So Ostara, Easter, that's where that comes from. And it's celebrated around the first day of spring, and it's when night and day are equal in length.
And for self care, like, this is really when you can begin making more time to be outside and breathe fresh air. I think it's a
Without
great time.
stinging your lungs.
Yeah, exactly. Without your nose running and your eyes burning.
Yeah.
Um,
Have you ever heard when people say, like, why do I live in a place where the air hurts my face?
no, but I relate.
Yeah. Well, now it'll stop
Um,
hurting.
yeah, exactly. Because then it stops and you're like, oh, this is nice. But yeah, I also think that it's just a great time to like begin, if you're taking like little walks every day, like begin to watch the world like awaken around you, like slowly day by day. You might start to notice like snow melting, or like bulb flowers starting to like come up through the earth, and greenery starting to come back, or birds singing or whatever. Like there's just like some subtle changes in the natural world that feel really, I don't know why I keep coming back. Can you tell I'm like worried about this election? I'm just like, hope. Hope is nice. Remember hope. That's literally the theme of this episode. But I think that that's really nice around the spring equinox, is to kind of like bloom with the world around us. And it's a nice reminder.
So that actually, I mean, I feel like a lot of people did that this year because
Totally.
that's when quarantine or lockdown, wherever you are, that's when that all started. And going and taking walks was like the only thing that we can do. And that's exactly what I did. Is like I walked around my neighborhood all the time, and I noticed what flowers were blooming when. I noticed, it was kind of funny to see like the different colors of flowers that bloomed when,
Totally.
because I felt like it was around the same times that they bloomed, which was interesting. And Yeah, and now I know what the early flowers are, what the late summer flowers are, So
Yeah.
it's really interesting, and I'm looking forward to doing that again and
Yeah,
pulling
and I
out
think
my Plant Snap app.
yes, Plant Snap,
The
sponsor
best.
us. Um, I also think that, and this is something I find really comforting, especially as someone who, really preaches about the importance of rest, but has a hard time practicing what she preaches.
Yes.
Um, I think that it's really powerful, like around that time where like the earth has, like nature around us, again, especially in New England, has felt for months like very barren and very like dead, for lack of a better term. And then all of a sudden, you realize that like there's actually been like so much going on beneath the surface that we couldn't see that like needed that time of being dormant in
Yeah.
order to bloom.
Yeah.
And like there just feels like a very obvious metaphor there. And yeah, I just find this that time of year to be like so reaffirming. So anything you can do to kind of like document or watch or just observe is really nice. You can also, create an altar using like eggs, seeds, flowers, things that like indicate that sort of like small beginning. Um, can feel really powerful if you're a gardener, if you've worked on your green thumb through in bulk, you can also like literally start to plant seeds and start to care for them indoors before they move into your beautiful garden outside.
Yeah, one thing I think could be fun or feel really good to do with those seeds if you have them could be the seed, whatever it is, could be just any seed, or it could be a seed for something, for a specific plant that you want to grow. It could be nice to have a ritual to go along with it. So, holding that seed in your hand and visualizing your goals, your intentions, whatever it is that you want to bring to fruition, and, charge that with your energy and intention. And then you can plant it in the earth or in a pot, whatever it is. I mean, if you're in the city, maybe a pot is better. And then tend to it throughout the year and watch it blossom. So that could be a nice thing to do. Do it what Sarah Potter said she did, and name it after a family member so you remember to take care
Oh
of
yeah. Oh my god, I
it.
loved that.
Yeah.
Yes. Guilt
And
yourself.
another good thing to do, evaluate your space. So your mental space, emotional, physical space, and think about, is it conducive to growth? Is it are you able to actually nurture these things and allow the things that you want to actually grow in the environment that you're in? Are you set up for success? So just think about that as you're moving through your space.
That's really important. Spring cleaning, right?
Spring cleaning, of course.
Yes. And I love the idea of putting that like lens on it. Like, if this was my little pot, would I grow or no? Good.
Exactly.
I could probably use a little refresh on that. But
What would
yeah,
you be
then
watered with? Wine?
yeah, oh, plenty of that flowing here, the Malone household. Um, but yeah, then we move into Beltane or May Day, which is May 1st. And so that's halfway between the spring equinox and the summer solstice. So this is when we're celebrating the oncoming summer, return to life. It's named for Bel, the Celtic god of light and fire. This is a celebration essentially of like fire, fertility, desire, excitement, joy. There's like a lusciousness to this celebration. This is a fun one.
Yeah, this is definitely my favorite one of the year because it is, I
Yes.
mean, all those things that you said, it's exciting. I'm a summer girl, so this is definitely, this is a celebration of that oncoming season. And
Absolutely.
it's just about, surrounding yourself with everything that you love and celebrating your love. So self-love and self-worship is, those kind of rituals would be really good at this time. I have a recipe for a self-love potion that I'll post in the show notes. It's with rose and hibiscus, and it's a really nice thing to make for yourself. So I think a while back when I taught that Potions with Purpose class, that was one of the recipes that I included in there. And it's really just about infusing all of your self-love intentions while you make it. So that's a really nice thing to do for yourself.
It's
Um,
beautiful too.
yes, it is very pretty.
Yes.
Anything with hibiscus, it just makes it this bright pink and it's really nice.
Oh, so nice.
Gorgeous. And then obviously, when we're talking about desire and excitement and joy, we're talking about sex and sex magic. Obviously, a great thing to do at this time. You can use the energy of an orgasm to really put some power into your intentions, right?
Yes.
That's the funnest way to do it.
Shout your intentions at the top of
Yeah.
your lungs.
Get vocal.
No, totally. Like this is the time where like all coming back to life, you know, like
Back
and if
to
you think
life.
about totally. And if you think about you know, kind of like maiden mother crone, it's like this is kind of that like very fertile period in the
Mm,
between those transitions of like maiden to mother, you know, like
yeah.
where you're a grown ass woman or man. Yeah, like just love this. Hope you all do it. Hope
Yeah.
around May 1st I just hear screaming intentions on my little nature walks.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is all about pleasure, pleasure in any way that you want to feel it. So you can indulge in your senses, whatever that means to you. So whether that's sex and sex magic, or maybe it's just dressing yourself in your favorite fabrics that really feel good, or surrounding yourself with really beautiful things that you love to look at, or listening to your
Yeah.
favorite music, all these different things that just make you feel like what you said, like luscious was a really good word. um,
Yes.
Things that
Put
just make
on
you
like a
feel like,
perfume, you know, just like little things that like are they maybe necessary? No. But that's not
oh,
what this celebration is about. It's about
yeah,
like
it's about like
the
basking.
yes, ooh, basking.
Yeah.
Love that. And then slowly but surely, we move all the way into summer solstice. So this is, you know, the longest day or like day of light of the year. Big full moon energy here. Like we've
Yes.
got there's like a robustness to the summer solstice um that's really exciting, really celebratory, really embodied, but in the same time, because it's the longest day of the year, it's really like the beginning of the waning season, right? So if we have the most amount of daylight, it means that the next day we're like losing a tiny bit of light. So
Mm,
keeping that in mind and kind of like holding both of those things, I always find that the summer solstice is a great time to be like working on presence, you know, and like making sure that you are able to like be where you are feels potent at that time because like summer is so fleeting. Um, and again, like I said, it's like when this comes, this is like usually around what, June 22nd or so. We think of it as like the kickoff of summer, but we are actually like starting to lose a little bit of light. So that's, I always find that like kind of interesting.
some self-care at this time. So it's not quite Leo season yet, but you'll get there eventually. But just, I feel like it has that same kind of energy where it's really, that big full moon energy that we talked about. It's when you are your most bold, authentic self. So Leo season is usually about, well, I don't know. Maybe is this a bad thing to say about Leos? They love to celebrate themselves. I don't mean it in a bad way, but it's that's the kind of energy that you want to bring to it.
Totally.
Um, so yeah, celebrate yourself, treat yourself, and it's a very social time as well. So sitting around a fire with friends or spending time at the beach, really embodying that energy can feel really good.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can also work with the sun card in the tarot. And something I really love, kind of in that same vein of like celebrating yourself or, you know, showing yourself some like appreciation, is, you know, the sun doesn't get to like choose where it shines. Not to be like corny, but it's so like when you're working with this card, it can be really helpful to focus on like self-confidence, joy, embodiment, allowing ourselves to be seen, um, not kind of like forming ourselves to fit into a certain situation or position or, like room, but really like showing up in our own fullness. So working on that, um, and, surrounding yourself, like you were saying, with the people who love and see and appreciate you is a really powerful way to step into the summer.
Yeah. Feels good. Feels
Feels good.
good. And then on August 1st, we have Lammas. It's the beginning of harvest season. So the central focus is to reap and harvest what has been planted earlier in the year. So it's a good time to evaluate how things are going. So you'll notice that, a couple stops along the way, we're reflecting and evaluating. And this is a good time to do that. So some self-care at this time. You could spend some time in the kitchen because it's harvest season. Maybe you can prepare some fresh foods that you actually physically harvested, or, baking, or just getting in the kitchen and creating something for yourself. Do a little bit of kitchen magic and make something delicious.
Yes, I love that so much. And especially like in August, like produce wise, like there's really such an abundance in getting to be experimental and explore in that ways. So fun.
Yeah.
Um, and it's also, this is traditionally associated with weddings. So, like, the more that you can do in community, the better. It doesn't necessarily have to be about romantic love, but, like, again, just making sure you're kind of like surrounded by people you love. And so you can think about like dinner parties, so all that amazing kitchen magic that you're doing. You can share with people or have them over if that's allowed ever again. And I really liked the idea of like taking time to go around the table and acknowledge and celebrate the progress that everyone has made in the year, like doing that checking in as a community and like not necessarily in the sense of like accountability, but like sharing the wins and like making space to be celebratory of each other and of ourselves just feels very appropriate for that beginning of harvest season.
That just reminds me, one of my friends likes to do appreciation circles.
Oh my God, I'm
Where you
obsessed with
just like
that.
go around and say something that you appreciate about the person next to you.
Oh, oh my God.
That's sweet. At first I was
Very
like, okay, but then she made us do it and I was like, oh, this feels good.
right. I love that so
Yeah.
much.
And then we move into the fall equinox at the end of September. So we call it Mabon. Day and night are equal length. That's the balance of Libra season. And it's kind of time for that second harvest. And at this time, it's more, yes, it starts in September, but it does have more of those like gratitude, Thanksgiving type of vibes. You're bringing about like that second harvest is really about the end of that season and being grateful for everything that you've been able to sow that year.
Yes, totally. So I think that there's like a handful of ways that you can, start reflecting and also releasing as we get prepared to start all over again. So, self care wise, you can create a gratitude journal, which we talked about a little bit, and do some reflecting on like the things that feel really abundant, really beautiful, really present and able to be worked with, and just kind of like showing that appreciation is obviously very powerful, as Kristen educated us on earlier in this episode. You can do, start incorporating some like releasing practices, so like cord cutting rituals. If there's, this is all, I always feel like this fall equinox is a good time to like reinstate boundaries. If things have gotten a little loosey goosey over the summer, like this is a good time to just be like, let's rein it back in. Let's like get clear on like what's okay and what's not okay. Maybe things have changed. I just like to I like to draw those lines around the fall equinox. That feels like very protective as you go into like more of a hibernating state in the winter again. Um, and if you want to get like a little magical, you can do some cord cutting, things like that. Um, and I just think it's important to the point about balance to like around this time of year be reflecting on what balance means or looks like to you now. Balance is an ever evolving target for each of us individually. So it's a really nice time to like turn inward as we get ready to like head back into more of this moonlit time of the year, to really think about like what has changed. Like, do I need to change my expectations, my habits, my maybe what worked for you around this time last year just like isn't working anymore? And rather than expecting yourself to be the same day in and day out, really allowing a little bit of grace at this time to support yourself feels just really nice. And again, it's just a nice reminder to do that before we head into our little hibernation station.
When you say a cord cutting ritual, can you explain what that means to people who might not know?
Yeah, totally. So there's a lot of ways to do cord cutting rituals, but essentially, like energetically, and I'm sure we can all relate to this, right? Like when we are in relationship with someone or something, and there's like an emotional bond, even if maybe that relationship ends or that person's far away or something has changed, like we can still feel like bonded to that place or person or thing or whatever it is, right? Like you end a relationship or something has, you leave a job and you still feel like, I don't know, kind of like pulled towards it. If you've ever found yourself doom scrolling through your ex's Instagram, I'm talking to you. Talking to me, talking to you.
Doom scrolling is definitely the word of 2020, I think.
Doom scrolling is like, yeah, it's a lifestyle. Um, but yeah, so a cord cutting ritual is essentially like you can do it. There's a lot of ways to do it. So I'll see if I can find like a link to a couple options to put in the show notes, but you can do it as like a visualization of like a cord between, say, I was trying to do a cord cutting between Kristen and I, which I would never do. But say I was for some reason. Something has gone awry. She didn't invite me to her appreciation dinner circle. I can't stand it. So I
Never.
want to do a cord cutting ritual. So you can either do a visualization of like seeing basically like a rope between like you and this other person, me and Kristen. And you essentially are working through like cutting that. Obviously there's rituals where you're actually cutting a physical rope or yarn or whatever, but it's really in the name of like releasing yourself from feeling tethered to something that is no longer serving you. So again, it doesn't always have to be with a person. It can be really helpful if you're trying to get over a relationship or that, you're not in anymore or that you need to move on from, but you can also do it with like yeah, habits, beliefs. Um you can actually look at lineages and things like that. But I find it really helpful. Like we've talked about a million times before, I'm a very visual person. So, like, the idea of having that kind of like, we were bonded and now we are not
Hmm. Just like
visualization
very
feels really,
clear.
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. I
Uh,
like to do it with, I mean, I think I've said before that I like the practicality of doing things in the shower.
yes.
So, or taking a shower or a bath and adding some salt. So whether you have like a salt scrub or adding salt to the bath or any clearing stones that you'd like to use as well, you can use that in the shower and it can feel really invigorating. Just visualizing, doing that same visualization but in the shower and visualizing it washing off of you and going down the drain, or
Ooh,
that cord just kind of swirling down the drain and
slithering away.
yeah, slithering away. And then when you get out of the bath or the shower, you can put some, not lotion or oil, some oil on as a protection, coating yourself in that
Ooh, yeah.
to, you know, seal yourself off from the negativity,
Yes.
So that's a practical way to do it too.
I love that. And let's be honest, once we start transitioning into fall, we all could use a little extra hydration and exfoliation. So
Absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah.
Very practical.
Well, that felt good. That was fun.
It's our journey through the year.
Yeah. We'd love to hear if you have any particular rituals around these holidays or any other time of the year. We love to hear from you. So yeah, if you have anything you want to share with us, you could email us at itsjustaphasepod@gmail.com, or you can reach out at itsjustaphasepod on Instagram. If you liked what you heard today, we'd love for you to leave a review on iTunes. It helps people like you find our show, and we just love to hear from you. It makes us feel really good. So that's all. That's all, folks.
That's all, folks. We took a journey through the year. We're sending you all sorts of love and supportive vibes for this wild and crazy time that we're living in.
Yes.
See you next week. I hope the next time we speak, we know who wins.
And what to do and where to go and how long we need to scream for.